So welcome to the International E-Waste Day podcast with Enviroserve. I'm James Pikeway, this is Dustin Chernowski, and well, for the next hour, we're going to be talking e-waste. We're going to be talking about why this day is important, and we're going to be talking about why Dubai is one of the world leaders. Or in fact, we have one of, what's it called? What do we call this facility?
This is the recycling hub by Enviroserve, and it's one of the most sophisticated, the largest, most advanced electronic waste processing plants in the world.
That's the word, processing plant. When we think of recycling, we think of a lot of things, but processing and reprocessing the components is probably not one that we think a lot about. So we've got a great day planned, and this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I'm going to show you guys that this is actually a manufacturing facility in reverse. So we're taking things that we would recognize, laptops and desktop computers, washing machines, microwaves, hair dryers, you name it. If it takes electricity, it's considered e-waste. And if it's e-waste, it can be processed in this plant. And what we do is basically just crush everything down into granules and put them back into the market to be turned into new products. So it's a cool process. There's a lot to talk about. We've got some special guests. We're going to make some introductions to our executive team. We've got some of our industry experts lined up. We've got a great show for everybody today. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So let's get started.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
I don't know where it was or through who and what that you came to understand about Enviroserve in those early days, but it all made a difference. Those various hour or twos in the evening that we spent chatting about this crazy thing called collecting mobile phones. Look what it's ended up as, and it's been an amazing journey.
Stuart, why did you start in the first place? What was the bug that got into you to say, okay, I want to go down this road of e-waste?
Yeah, over the years it's become prevalent that my brain works in a very, very interesting way as regards ideas. I mean, I've just popped an idea to you today, which came to me yesterday, and environment was something that came to me as regards the refrigerant gas, which was the original concept of Enviroserve, was the recovery and reclaiming of refrigerant gas, and from then onwards it was anything environmental, wherever the idea came from. Whether it was through global corporates that I understood in America or in the US or in Europe, where the industry was stable and established, or it was a magazine where I first saw that a mobile phone, hand in your broken mobile phone and you get a few pounds for it, which made me think, well, there must be something in this, and thus started the electronic waste side of things with those very first mobile phones.
It's 2020.
Wow.
When you look back and you look at this road that we've gone, I mean, from where you started with Enviroserve to where we are today, we're sitting in this. The first time I've ever been to this facility, it's brand new. It blows my mind. We've walked through. I've seen the sorting. I've seen the crushing. I've had a talk with the folks about cleaning refrigerant gas, and the whole time my mouth's wide open, and I'm just going, wow. What goes through your mind as you think about all this?
Well, Brian Wilkie and I have been together through this journey of 16 years together, and we're akin to many things. And the biggest thing to both of us in those early days in 2004 was the UAE needed something green. Not just talking about it, not just consulting, but actually doing something about the environment within which we live and operate. Brian and I have been here a long time. This is our home. The UAE is home to many, many millions of people. And Brian and I were certainly of an agreement that something had to happen on the green initiative. So that started Enviroserve, and the journey has been longer than expected. It's been...
What got in the way of, I mean, when you think of the early days, you and Brian, and you're talking about this, and you're starting things going, and there's uptake. People are listening. People are joining in. They're saying, yeah, we got to do this. But you said, I mean, even today when we look at the stats, 2019, 17.4% of e-waste is actually being recycled or reused. That's a lot that isn't. What, from your perspective, and obviously we situate ourselves here in the UAE, what has slowed things down in your mind?
I think what's let's work on what's sped it up a bit. Is that in 2004 there was no environment manager or a CSR director. There was no such beast in big corporates. And
So who did you have to talk to get people to buy in?
That's right, the general manager or the warehouse guy or whatever it was, going, hey, we can save you money. That was the motto of Enviroserve in those days, was Enviroserve saving you money, which we were doing with the refrigerant gas. When it came to the electronic waste, we had the warehouse person, or we had an OEM, an original equipment manufacturer, driving things forward. So that sped things up. The minute we opened our doors to electronic waste, the solution was available to the major manufacturers, going, this is now a compliant process. There's something that is started. And what the UAE needs, because we are, as you said, we're here in the UAE, what we need now is that developed countries' regulations and legislation enforced. You know, remember the old days when there was no traffic cameras?
Yeah.
But the speed limit was 120, but nobody did 120. So we are humans, and unless there is some enforcement and there is some regulations in place, we'll do 160 on the motorway, but with cameras every half kilometre, everybody's doing 120 or 140. So the same thing with electronic waste. What sped it up has been awareness about e-waste globally amongst the big corporates, and what slowed it down is this continual sort of trade rather than a proper compliant processing. That's what we're tackling right now, and that's where the government has turned to us. The then Minister of Environment, His Excellency Dr. Tani Al-Zayudi, who's now the Minister of State for Foreign Trade, saw this facility just after he'd come back from Davos and mentioned us in Davos at the Economic Forum in Davos, saying we have a 39,000 ton plant now for electronic waste. And when he saw it, like everybody, their eyes are wide open going, this is fantastic. This is sustainability. And this is at the core of Strategy 2021, Expo 2020, et cetera, et cetera. So these things are speeding it up.
When I walk around this plant, there aren't too many plants like this around the world. Like, you are one of really a handful of organizations that are doing this.
Yeah, there's only 6 of these globally. And we're the only one in the Middle East, Africa, Caucasus, and subcontinent Asia. So the nearest one is Hong Kong, or the nearest one is Germany. So that was all part of the plan, and the strategy was to be first to market. First to market is always important. Capture the boundaries, which are the Middle East, Africa, and the Caucasus primarily. And the idea of building this as a project started in 2014, and in parallel, off we went to Africa and explored Africa and put the hub and spoke system together. So what you see here is, as we call it, the recycling hub, and the hub and spoke logistics system from my old days of DHL and Brian's old days of Memo Express are still alive. So those spokes in Kenya, Rwanda, tremendous stories, fantastic stories of developing those operations from Cape Town to Tbilisi. Those are our spokes, and they continue to feed the hub here in UAE.
One of the things that I found really exciting is the reuse side of things. Now, obviously, there are organizations like Apple who do not want their products to leave the recycling plant in a full form. They want it broken down, and that's great. But there are other people who are sending product in who are saying, hey, if it can be recycled, some of the banks are sending in computers, you wipe them, you do everything to put it back into a running order. And they said, hey, we want this to be used again. And the ability you have through your hub and spoke system to not only recycle and bring in recyclable products, but to bring in products to reuse, and then using that system, getting them to people and organizations and countries that benefit from this technology that they wouldn't otherwise be able to get, afford, or have. It's pretty exciting.
It is. It's another twist to the whole environmental and sustainability is the reuse, and it's a growing, developing global industry. subtitled ITAD, for the disposition of assets that are still valuable to somebody somewhere. And we implemented a formal process years ago on this. We have the dealer network now, and where every single container that goes out of reusable, refurbished laptops, I know somebody's going to benefit from that somewhere in the world, and I'm happy about it.
You got the biggest smile on your face.
It's a nice balance between commercialization of recycling, which is a difficult model.
I mean, really. I mean, I don't think, when I think of recycling, I don't think of that commercialization side of it. And when I do think of it, ever so briefly, the complications of it.
It is. It's very complicated, and that's the recipe. That's the mix that's in the kitchen, and we've got that mix and that recipe correct. So much so that we've got countries coming to Enviroserve saying, not only do you like your ethos and your the way that you do business, but you've got a really good recipe, a dynamic and vibrant and unique method of baking that cake. And we've got countries that are coming to us saying, can we have your name on our building in so and so country? Wow. So
that's got to make you really feel good.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a shiver down my spine of sort of that type of thing. But we've got a great team here that are supporting each other. And that's where it all starts, James, is the people that are here. And it's been a long process where you've got to balance that economy between this environmental sustainability,
economic cycles that have gotten in the way, and we've both seen companies come and go in those economic cycles. What you're doing, like you said, it slows down a little bit, but it managed to keep going.
Yeah, and it's either 2007 or 8 we had a bit of a bumpy ride. We've had a bumpy ride with the current situation here,
COVID,
and may the strong survive. And good, hats off to those that will make it through and adapt. And that's what it's all about. Is the team here adapted on March the 21st to be exact. I remember that meeting, and the adapting to the situation was immediate, and you could see it on the bottom line.
Where do you see things going? I mean, when we look at the stats, I was really surprised actually when I was looking at e-waste day, and this is only the second International e-waste day. I mean, I still can't. I thought, oh, okay, we're looking at 2020, and it said, the second. And I'm going, what?
This is what's speeding it up. Finally, the world's waking up to the actual errors of their ways in throwing away e-waste and what the damage has caused. And it's the same with many things. Thank goodness we've got chemists and technical people creating these beautiful machines that have done so. They've sent us to the moon and back. They're sending us to places that we've yet to discover. And that technology is incredulous. It's fast moving. But there's got to be the back end of those scientists saying, what do we do and how do we get that stuff back? When I'm thinking, my brain's thinking, well, what about all that e-waste that's floating around us in space?
Exactly.
How am I going to collect that? Any ideas out there? More than welcome, James.
I want to stay with that for just a second and sort of look into the future. Is we like I said, we only about 18% of e-waste is actually being recycled, reused. What do you see? Where do you see things going to help people to actually start acting on this reusing and recycling in the e-waste area?
I think this current COVID situation has woken a lot of people up to all sorts of different things, and I think the world is waking up to we cannot carry on with this imbalance. People talk circular economy. And they talk about the circular economy is the manufacture of a product, the capture of that product, the fact that it goes to a resource treatment plant, which is what we are, and we need more of those. That's what's going to increase the 17% is resource treatment facilities like ours, not waste management. Waste management is managing waste. Resource treatment is the new way to go. And getting back to the what's got to change is that this has woken up, COVID has woken people up to we cannot continue to be unsustainable in an economy, because circular economy has two words: circular. We got where in the definition of circular economy of manufacture, recycle, put back into manufacturing. Where's the word economy? There's one thing we've forgotten about: is the financial circular economy. We haven't been financially circular for many, many years. We're manufacturing more money than the actual sovereign that it's based on of each country. So it's a very topical discussion of where economy comes into circular economy, but it's one that I'm fairly strong on, is that everybody's economy is based on a sovereign. If you don't have that sovereign wealth, the value of that dollar or that currency shouldn't be there. It's being printed, and that's not circular. So we've got to combine finance into our circular economy.
I guess the more we start coming to plants like yourself, like what you guys have here at Enviroserve, and bringing people in, bringing the kids in who are using all these electronic devices, and they start seeing where it's going and what we can do with it, I guess that's what really starts to kickstart the whole process as well. And as they start putting the economy together with the spending economy and the investing economy and the buying economy and there's a recycle, reuse and resource reclaiming economy all built into this. And I guess
to be. Yeah,
when folks realize that.
These are
Oh, okay, that's okay. Yeah. Yeah, no problem. Just I'll just edit it out. It's okay. It's like no problem. Yeah, a lot of talking. So this is onto an SD card, micro SD, and it does the whole thing. It's literally like having a radio station now. So you can bring 4 mics in. It can bring a computer into it. It can bring your mobile phone into it, so you could take calls. And then you got all your jingles. So if you've got stuff, so you could do like a live show and play out your theme songs and whatnot. Yeah, it's got 4 mics. It's literally a radio station.
Incredible. I mean, the same with, as I was saying, Nick Cate. He handed in some of those old Sony computers and cameras and things.
Yeah.
And what he carries around now is a lightweight, high def, and the old Sony cameras of tropping around Jordan with him, and some of the old rally sites was gone.
So when I come and set up somewhere, I just usually bring this, and you get the great sound, and it goes in, and then. So
you're not really good for my business, then, James, because that.
Well, I got another bag there with some older equipment in there, but. But it's all solid state. So at some point it's going to go, but.
You probably have more of the thing is there's more of these on the market than there were of the older product, which was bigger and heavier with electronics. And more of these now than
I guess the problem with the older stuff, because I do have a bag that's got I've got a yellow bag behind you that has an older kit in it. I carry it around with me just in case. You need more pieces. So, you've got the mixer, and then you've got to run it into something, and then something's got to have all where this has just got it all on board, and some techno wizardry as well. So it'll does onboard noise canceling. It does, it can play around with the microphones a little bit.
Brilliant.
As it's going in, so that when you get your output, it sounds pretty much like it would if it was coming off a radio station.
Radio station.
Yeah, and it's recording at 48. And I guess the beauty of this is I could output it through, there's a USB here, into my computer, directly into Audition, and so Adobe Audition, this will go in and it'll work as an interface. So not only as a mixer, but a mixer interface, so I can record onto each of the channels into Audition directly from this.
Well, let's get to all the radio stations and we'll recycle all those studios and all that big stuff. We can just go around with this.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like you kind of look at it and you say, this is, when we started off at ARN and you were coming in, a nice big mixing board. This is better than that.
There you go. That's the improvement in technology and the availability. And I think that's the whole thing, is that e-waste globally, the figures are out every year that the volumes are increasing more than any other waste stream globally.
Yeah.
Forget paper and plastic. E-waste is by far the largest growing waste stream in the world. And why? When you and I grew up, there was a telephone.
That's it.
There was one TV and a radio, and that was in a record player at home. Now, every room has got 3 or 4 screens of some kind.
And they all deteriorate. They all break down. They,
manufactured to break.
Yeah. And then what do you do with it? And I mean, it's funny because you're downstairs and you got all those computers that you're recycling. I probably have a stack of those sitting at home right now.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, I do. I know.
Yeah.
I've got 8 different computers that are all piled up. And my wife always says, when are we going to get rid of these? And it's funny because I always say, I think Enviroserve takes those. And then it's like, I got to get in touch with them. And then I close the door and they're still in there. And it's like, it's. I think for me, and I think this is for a lot of people, it's like, I know you're here, and we know that there's services out there, but don't remember, how do we get in touch? How do we do this? And it's so simple.
It is very simple, and Leas, I know, is working very hard with his team to access those consumers, because we talked about where product comes from. We've got those OEMs who insist on a compliant, secure process. Chain of custody, which we have completely down to the fact that you can sit in your office in wherever you are in the world, and you can watch your product online being processed here at TRH.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. It was a dynamic shift in the movement to TRH, to the recycling hub here. The second level is obviously the end user, right, who has those products that you see downstairs that are turned over every 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And then the third and largest is the domestic market, your vacuum cleaners, your washing machines.
See, I always forget about those.
Oh, man. And there's a lot of those. And that's where Leas and his team are working hard to allow those domestic users access easily to the Enviroserve services. And that's a difficult logistics equation. A vacuum cleaner doesn't have much value to it for a precious metals or metallic content. It's a lot of plastic, and therefore the cost to collect a vacuum cleaner from somebody is very high. So it's an equation that needs to be balanced. And I know Leas is working hard to bring that to the UAE, and from that model we'll extend that to our operations globally.
As we become more attuned to recycling, reusing, and taking these components, I mean, the precious metals are one, but the plastic components have some value as well. And as we find new uses for them or new processes to take that recycled plastic and reconstitute it in some way, I guess that puts you kind of at the forefront, because you're constantly talking with those researchers, with those innovators, with those inventors who are looking at process to say, take the plastic from a vacuum cleaner and do something with it to make it work again.
You've come on to a very interesting point, James, is that there's scientists and technology out there, not in manufacturing a different type of plastic, but also and then they're looking at how we recycle that. So we've come full circle as regards just those scientists and wonderful technicians and engineers who produce the different types of plastic to now those amazing people with amazing brains going, well, let's design the technology to recycle that product. And it's coming across our desk as one of the top 6 in the world. There's only 6 of these facilities globally, as I mentioned, and so these type of technologies are being introduced to us from Canada, funny enough, all the way through to Australia. It's amazing the growth, and this is speeding things up. And 17% is a terrible figure, I think, in 2020, where the damage to the globe. Environmentally, to people's health, is so large that we all must wake up a lot quicker to what the damage that washing machine or that mobile phone is doing to our planet. We cannot continue to sustain anything above a 60-40 relationship with Mother Nature. We should be only taking 40% and recycling 60% in urban mining. Anything more than 40% that we're taking out of Mother Nature, she has no chance of recovering. 60-40.
How far off do you think we are? Where do you look at? I mean, we know where we are at one point. Where do you see things going in the next 5 years?
We're in the 70s and 80s, you know, and that's a terrible figure to be at. That we're removing from nature more than we can, more than she can heal. You know, everybody's amazed and seeing the videos of the sea.
Yeah.
In one respect of how much tonnage of product, of waste is in the sea, but also during COVID, during the lockdown, of all these animals and these sea creatures that are suddenly reappearing in clearer seas.
Yeah.
It was amazing, and that's how quick nature can recover. But she ain't going to recover if we're taking more than 40% as quickly.
One of the things Leia said when I spoke to him was we need a little bit of a kick. And one of the kicks that he mentioned, and it didn't even dawn on me, is how easy it is right now to dispose of stuff. So landfill, where a whole bunch of this technology ends up, just because it's simple to walk out to the skip and throw in my water cooler and walk away, because it's only, especially in our country, it's 10 dirhams, a ridiculous number for a ton or several tons of waste. And his prescription is, well, let's make it really expensive to put stuff into landfill, which obviously fills in nicely with the 60-40 split. And in doing that, it's going to force us to start thinking twice about how we're using products, how we're reusing products, how we're disposing of products, and could have this monumental shift. And maybe COVID-19, with all the the negative things that it's doing, as you said, is getting us to think more.
Monumental shift. Absolutely. You know, the world and humans sometimes need to make that dynamic change. They need a monumental shift of perception, of understanding, of realization. What damage this is. This has an effect on the earth and on us as humans. And Leas is right. He keeps banging on about the low cost to throw something away. It's illogical. The logic has been proven globally that the higher the price of throwing something away, the more a human will adapt to saying, well, it has some value and it should be, and I'm not going to pay that much to dump it into a landfill. I'd rather make sure it goes to a processor and get it done. Logic.
I gotta say, we've been talking on and off for we haven't spoken in a few years. I gotta say, and I don't know why that is. I don't know how we lost track, but we're back talking now. And I remember those first conversations, and this has been a lot of fun. And I you know what leaves me, Stuart, as we're having this conversation is hope, and in a good way. And I don't mean but it really it's what you've put together here, what your team has put together here. It really. It creates, there's hope and there's opportunity, and from innovation to experiment to just ideas, it's a very exciting time to be doing what you're doing.
Thanks, James. Hope is there. Belief is what's kept us all going here. Belief in the idea, belief in logic. Again, I use that word because the UAE is a wonderful country to operate a company in, to start a company and to grow it. I'm a strong believer in what His Highness Sheikh Mohammed Al Maktoum always says, is that build it and people will come. It's been a mainstay in the whole...
You've embraced it.
I have. I've embraced it, and it works. And it's been a delight to form this hub for the UAE, create a legacy. Brian and I have created another legacy. I mean, he's known for his legacies, Brian, and to have been with Brian for 16, 17 years and learning from him has been an amazing journey as well.
Stuart, thank you very much.
James, good to see you.
Waste. I mean, it's all waste, but...
Well, that's the thing. Waste is not waste.
Exactly,
I mean, it's waste, but there's a big difference. And when we start talking about electronics, it's a whole new ballgame.
Exactly. I mean, people, or myself including, we need really to differentiate nowadays between waste and resources. What used to be waste in the past, which is general waste, and which people call us, second name is garbage, is no more garbage. We have waste, which is now becoming probably 10 to 20% of the original waste.
That's it?
Exactly.
Wow.
Because now 80% of the resources or the waste is being recycled. Recyclables, plastic, carton, food waste, solid waste, liquid, everything is being recycled. So e-waste is one of them. It's now becoming a resource. So e-waste is no more waste, it's a resource which people should consider a resource and should consider as a raw material.
So hold on, we consider waste both as a resource and as a raw material.
Yeah, it's a resource means it's a waste. It will be processed, become raw material, and it's a resource to build new phones, build new TVs, new iPhones, and so forth. Yeah.
So when we start thinking about e-waste, I've walked through the plant here.
Yeah.
This is really complex.
Yeah.
How do we start getting our minds around the idea that both it's what we're looking at is a resource and it's a recyclable?
Yeah, I mean, we don't ask also from the general public to understand the whole process, of course, of recycling a phone or a computer or. We just want them to understand that it's whatever you have in your hand, don't throw it in the garbage bin, but just get it to a recycling facility. It's raw material. It's whatever your phone is made of 3 months ago or a year ago when it was new. Those materials, you have it in your hand, just need to be reshaped and retransformed to back what it was used to be, and then we can take it back to the factory and make a new phone.
It's easy for me to visualize the packaging that I'm getting with my potatoes, putting that into the recycler.
Yeah.
When I think of my old Nokia, when I think of my old keyboard, when I think of, COVID-19, people have got light sets.
Exactly.
I think of my light set that I'm now getting rid of.
Fax machine.
I don't think of those things in terms of necessarily recycling. I just think of put it by the garbage and it gets taken care of.
Yeah, but actually, if you think about it, it's easier to think about a phone as e-waste to be recycled, because if you crack a phone or a computer and just open it, what you will see? You will see a board with metal on it, aluminium, copper, gold, all those materials. You can see them. Just somebody need to break them down and send them to the factory again to make new phones. So it's not very difficult to visualize. What's more challenging in the market nowadays is that people, just before taking a piece of electronic, throw it in the garbage bin just to wait. This is not waste. It is resource.
How do we get people to do that? How do we get that into their head?
This is the job of everybody, including ourselves. Awareness programs. I mean, UAE is very active, especially Dubai. Are very, very active in terms of awareness. In there is a project called My City, My Environment, which was implemented in Jumeirah. All the Jumeirah area, they have 2 bins, one for recyclables and one for general waste. So all these are facts which is being introduced and implemented in the market to make sure that people are aware of that this is not a waste. But it's e-waste is a part of the awareness program. We focus on e-waste because it's our specialty, but the awareness program include all recyclables, paper, plastic. And now people think when they see a plastic bag or plastic water bottle, they think, oh, it's recyclables. So this is what we are aiming to do with e-waste. So what we are doing, through our marketing department, we are having a monthly awareness program on social media, on different, on the radio, for example, what we are doing now, and make sure that the people, bit by bit, understand that this is a resource. If they do that, if they segregate the e-waste, it's not for me or for them, it's for their kids.
And that becomes that challenge, isn't it? I'm always blown away by the amount of e-waste. A record. I've got a statistic here that's coming from the WE Forum that's looking at 53.6 million metric tons of electric waste was generated worldwide in 2019, up 21% in just 5 years.
Yeah, and it's going only to increase.
I mean, these are spectacular numbers.
Yeah, We're talking about a general individual, if I'm not wrong, they have more than 13 kilogram of e-waste on a yearly basis. We're talking about everybody has nowadays a phone, or 2 phones, with cables, with earplugs, with chargers. Every device has that. Go to the iPad or a bigger device, a laptop, a TV, and the life cycle of each electronic device is becoming shorter and shorter.
Yeah.
We use them more, so the life cycle is shorter. What means that you need to buy more electronics in a shorter time. What happened to the old ones? A lot of people keep them just keeping them. They might use them, but nobody's using them. Next time when they move out of the house, they found a box of electronic waste. Throw it in the garbage. No, please don't do that. It's because the e-waste, one of my reasons I moved from general waste management to the specialized waste management or resource management is that the resources are big, or the e-waste is becoming higher and higher and higher. Generation of e-waste it's incredibly. This is one of the highest increasing waste quantity nowadays, because people are becoming more or electronically connected.
Well, and everything's electronic, isn't it?
Everything is electronic. Everybody has 2 phones, has a laptop or 2, have a TV, a radio, and. So this is, for me, one of the reasons I moved to specialized waste. Why? Because we need to make sure that this waste, and it's easy to achieve because we have here in Enviroserve, we have a huge facility who can recover up to 96% of any device.
Which is phenomenal. I mean, we walked through with Dustin at the very beginning where there's bags and bushels of everything. From fax machines to TVs and that's after the sorting stage of getting rid of the stuff that can be reused. And it is just enormous.
Exactly.
What's there?
It's like I said, it's one of the most increasing waste quantities generated by the public.
Yeah.
So this is our goal and day-to-day business, to make sure that public and companies, industrial and commercial and individual domestic use are aware that this is the future. Please make sure to dispose it correctly, bring it to us or to any other e-waste facility. They will process it correctly. We will send it to the factory and we'll make a new electronic out of it. And this is the future.
The scary side is some of the stats on collected and recycled e-waste, again from 2019, looking globally, is about 18%.
Exactly.
Do you get a sense that we're getting better at this, that we're becoming more aware, that we're becoming more sensitive to this kind of waste?
Yeah, we are advancing, but not the speed we want to. Let's say we are in the 80s in terms of plastic and cartons.
Wow.
Paper. What we used to be in the 80s, it used to be also 9%, 10%, 20%, and so now it's up to 70 to 80%. We are at that stage. But because the quantity of e-waste is increasing more than the recyclables in the 80s were increasing, because using more than we have 7 billion individuals on the world, on Mother Earth. All these factors are making a bit urgency on the matter that people need to be aware quicker than we have time in the 80s. We should make sure as government, companies, entities, countries, we need to do more to make sure that all parts of the society are aware of this. I don't call it an issue, but it's an urgency. It's a matter of. It's a very important matter. I don't want to call it a matter of life, but it's very important. People need to make sure they are segregating. It's not only e-waste, other waste, but e-waste is very important.
I'm one of the things that I constantly wonder about is, okay, so how do we get increased uptake? And how do we get the population to actually get motivated to do this? Because we know it's out there. We talk about it. We show images and on and on and on. And we talk about the resources that can be taken from this e-waste. And we talk about batteries and other things and what can happen when it goes into landfill. Yet like you said, we're still in the 80s. In some ways, we're in the 70s in our thinking.
For example, yeah.
Do you think, and this is again, this is a leading question, but I in looking what Enviroserve does, do you think the way forward, and you guys are doing this, and this is why I'm hoping that you're going to say, absolutely, this is the way to go. Do you think it's yes, we need to create awareness amongst individuals, amongst the community, but do you think business actually plays a big role in promoting that? So the Lenovos, the Unilevers, you start going down the line of all of our companies that are creating products, selling stuff. Do you think it becomes in those organizations with them championing e-waste and promoting that with their employees who then take that mindset home? Do you think that's the way to make this catch?
That's definitely the way to go, not only, but one of the most important ways to go. For example, the Lenovos and the bigger company, IBMs and Apples, and they have a big role to play because they are the generators, are the producer of e-waste. So once Lenovo sell computer, when they get the old one back, send it to us. So that you already recycle a laptop. You already guarantee the next laptop it's being produced at zero cost.
Right.
So for them, financially, it's very, very attractive because they're gonna sell it. The waste has a value at this moment. Secondly, it's a CSR. It's a social responsibility. You should also, as doing business, part of doing business, giving back. But in this, with e-waste, you don't give money back. You earn money back. It's just the fact of giving it.
Yeah.
So this is true. And the third very, very important factor as well is that it's not moving that fast. And I agree with you, but what need to happen now, for example, is that the landfill fees are very low, especially in the Middle East. They are very low.
That's a big deterrent to recycling, isn't it?
Exactly. So the financial factor is not there to make companies and especially individuals, instead of throwing it in the garbage, which is very cheap, to sell it or take it to a recycling facility. So when the landfill fees are now they're being tackled and they're being managed probably this year, end of this year, beginning of the next year, we hope that the new landfill fees will start, and we'll have, let's say, a normal landfill fees instead of 10 dirham per 6 tons, which is nothing. When we have those numbers and it will become very expensive to send garbage or waste to the landfill fees, everybody will go backwards and see, okay, it's too expensive, so what we're going to do about it? Make sure that generators, me and you, segregate at source, home. And then it will cost us less to take it to the landfill, and it will bring us money by selling the recyclables or giving it away.
How do we educate the public? And maybe it's not educate, it's inform them. Because one of the things that I constantly hear from people when we talk about recycling electronics and other things is this distrust. Now, the distrust is not that it's coming to a plant like this and be recycled, but people don't see the plants. They don't see... They see they see themselves dropping off the product, but they don't see where it's going. And you'll always hear people who say, I wonder if it's just a truck taking it to the landfill.
Yeah, I hear these questions a lot, and that's why we have programs within Enviroserve with schools to make students from schools come and visit us. Public are very, very welcome to come in. Every person who bring anything, even a small phone, are very welcome to witness this destruction, to see it being recycled, to see the machines working, to see what happened with it after that. So all these are visible and can be assessed by each individual every day. This we do. Most importantly as well is that what we need to do. The public need to make sure if they have any interrogation or mistrust, to contact the companies. We have a website, we have a video, a live stream, how we destroy, how we process our. So all these kind of things can be answered by the companies. Other side, the companies like us who recycle e-waste, but not only e-waste, should be also very transparent. What's happening, not beyond closed doors, but what happened to the waste when it with recyclables resources when they come into the warehouse. it should be visible. What we do with the schools, we have a lot of programs with schools that they come to us, they visit the facility, they see how the process is being handled by us, and they see what happened to the e-waste after that. So all these are factors from both sides, from the generators, which is the individuals and companies, and the treaters, which is us, to make sure that this, what people call a problem or challenge, is not a problem anymore. It's a resource.
When all is said and done, you keep coming to work every day. You've got a huge smile on your face. What excites you most about what you see coming in the future in this enterprise that you're engaged in?
It's not what I like about this work. That's one of the reasons I moved from general waste management to specialized waste management, is that this is still a very, very in developing. So the waste still there, and the waste is increasing. E-waste is increasing per day, and the number of people on the world is increasing. So we need to find solution. The solution, we have it, but we need to make sure everybody is aware of it and contributing. For me, it's a contribution of everybody. The challenges was people think, but so many difficult. No, it's not a difficulty for me. It's a work, but it's a hobby as well, because I'm helping the future of my kids and my grandkids.
Elias, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
It's my pleasure to be able to welcome Dr. Christopher Cooper. He's with Lenovo. He is the general manager of the data center group for Middle East and Africa. And we've heard so far from the folks at Enviroserve, we get a sense of where things are going on their side when we talk about e-waste and how they're processing it. I thought it would make a lot of sense to talk to the industrial side, the side of the equation where a lot of these products are being generated. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, James. Pleasure to be here. Absolutely.
So I'm really, this to me is very interesting, because as we were talking, as we were leading into this conversation, you painted the picture that there is so much going on from your perspective with respect to the creation of these environments and the devices that go with them, that it's not as simple as, hey, we've got this thing that we need to move out of circulation and do something with. It's really quite a complex ecosystem that you're working within.
Yeah, I mean, if we think just traditionally where we've come from to where we are today, and then let's look going forward, what's happening and what's been predicted by the likes of Gartner and IDC. So, we work in an environment in the data center business whereby traditionally customers will write off their assets, their IT assets, over a period normally of 5 years. Okay, they'll maybe look at refreshing after 3, but really they're trying to stretch them out to a 5-year period. What then happens at the end of that 5-year period? Okay, what happens to those assets? Then they remain in their data centers, and then as they look at new infrastructure, what happens to that old infrastructure? It's not something you can just park outside, because you've got data on there that's possibly got customer information, highly secure data. There's legislation around that and governance around the data. So you can't just put it in the bin. Even if you could, you've also got to think about the environmental side of it as well. So we've come from this challenge, and it's proliferating. It's getting more and more challenging. If we look at what's forecast and what's happening, there's a huge explosion of new data. We all hear about it. But where's it coming from? It's coming from this proliferation of huge numbers of new devices getting connected. So as it stands today, IDC predict that by 2025, there will be 80 billion devices connected to the internet. That's a vast increase on what we have today.
80 billion devices that have a 5-year lifespan that are going to be looking at a dumpster or a storage facility or something in that period.
Yeah, a lot of them actually have a shorter lifespan, because when we're talking about internet connected devices, that could be mobile phones. Yeah. It could be laptops. So often you're looking at a much shorter period, okay? Anything electronic. So the challenge we have is, as we've got this proliferation of new devices, and there's also this move towards the edge, okay? And what that means, it's about the shift from traditional data centers. So as it stands today, Gartner state that 10% of the data that's generated and computed is actually done outside of our traditional data centers or cloud. That's 10% today. But what they're predicting is that by 2022, that number will increase to 50%.
Wow.
And then by 2025 to 75%. So think about the backdrop we have of all these huge data centers built everywhere and cloud infrastructures. We all know about the hyperscalers and how they're providing huge services to all vertical economies. At the same time, you've got all these new devices coming in and this real shift towards generating and computing that data outside of data centers. So you've got even more infrastructure to manage. And again, a lot of these devices have a shorter lifespan. I mean, I'll ask you, James, I have in my home that I use 2 mobile phones, 2 different numbers, okay? How many old mobile phones do you have sat in your drawers at home?
Yeah, I've got a dozen. I counted them before we came on. A dozen, not to mention the 7 computers, 3 tablets, and a couple of game consoles and things I just don't actually know what to do with. There's a few old appliances in a box.
Absolutely. So they're just gathering dust. They're using up space. They're getting in the way. It's not that you still love those devices and you want to hang on to them, but generally it's because there's data on there. You wouldn't want it getting into the wrong hands, or you feel like there's still some asset value in there. So the beauty of working with the likes of Enviroserve, it ticks so many boxes. So it allows us to look at what we call the circular economy. Okay, so that's about taking devices out of the field that need to be retired. Maybe there's some asset value in those, and that asset value can go back to the owner. Or maybe it's just simply a case of disposing of them, but environmentally safely. We only have to look at some of the challenges. You look at the US Environmental Protection Agency. They say to date, 70% of electronic waste, or actually I'll rephrase that, 70% of the overall toxic waste that's stored actually comes from electronic waste.
Wow.
70% of the toxic waste today. And at the moment, only about 12.5% of that is properly recycled. Now that's alarming for anyone. And we know this issue is going to get bigger and bigger. So we have to be doing things about it now. So it requires, the government standards, the legislation.
How does this factor in? As you mentioned, there's a huge quantity of this computing, as we were talking about cloud and more, that's going to be happening, increasing off site from the huge data centers. That's coming. As Lenovo, and how are you guys dealing with these realities? And as you said, that reality that you need to deal with these components at some point, how does that factor in to what you do as an organization and to your organizational thinking?
That's a really good point and good question. So we have a corporate social responsibility as Lenovo, and quite frankly, I think every IT vendor does, and every partner that's selling IT infrastructure. We have a corporate social responsibility to educate our customers on what can be done with that infrastructure. So for example, in the data center business, we'll talk to an end user customer or a managed service provider that's providing cloud infrastructure. And one of the first challenges will often be they've got aging infrastructure sat in their existing data center. It's turned off, it's not using electricity, but it's using valuable floor space. And they need that floor space because they need to bring in refresh technology. So what do they do with it? So we can then broker the relationship with the likes of Enviroserve and bring in an organization that can take a look at that infrastructure, determine if there's an asset value, guarantee the integrity in the way that the data is safely destroyed. I mean, there are some stories we know of customers in our region where, I know of a customer who has been taking aging infrastructure and literally dumping it in the desert and driving bulldozers over it backwards and forwards to try and ensure that the data that's stored on that device, on that machine, is not readable by anyone else. I hear of other stories of another industry vertical whereby they've got customer data on old storage devices And to remove that, to feel like they're safely secure, removing it and, covering themselves from a data perspective, they're actually dropping those disks in the sea. And I'm sorry to say this, but these things alarmingly are happening. This is not just around this region. This is a global issue. And we all have a corporate social responsibility to help address that. But it's about education and a changing mindset.
When we start thinking about the challenges that you face with the partners that you work with, you talked about putting some of these things in the desert and driving over them with tractors, throwing them in the water to help erase data. Is that one of the big issues with uptake of this whole idea of taking these devices and these pieces to an organization like Enviroserve? Fear of how that data will be erased, disposed of, etc. Just really misunderstandings, because when you walk through Enviroserve, as you've seen the banks of erasers that they have that go through track by track by track of hard drives and simply destroy any data, and they certify it and they send you.
Yeah. But I think the biggest challenge here, James, is the educational side of it. Our customers are not aware of the facility and not aware of what can be done to protect them and their own assets. And it's just a case of getting them to understand this facility is there. I mean, it's here in the UAE. It's an amazing facility. It's here, it's up and running, it's available to everyone to use. Again, I come back to it. It really is about the education and explaining, getting that messaging out there. But also, I think getting the messaging out there that we all have a corporate social responsibility around this as well.
One of the things that I found really interesting, and I find really interesting when I look at a facility that Enviroserve is running, is not just the amount of reprocessing of things, so breaking it down to its plastic components and getting the gold out and the copper out and
the raw materials,
which is a huge piece of what they do, but also the reusable, the reprocessing or the taking of, when we're talking about these devices. Last time I was at Enviroserve, I'm walking through a section where they're reprocessing things and they're refurbishing things, and they had hundreds of monitors that they were packaging and sending to Kenya, sending to Nigeria, to places where these things are perfectly operational and work well and bring them light years ahead in some of their organizations. That's another big piece of it, isn't it?
It's a massive piece of it. And again, when we talk about disposing of things, there are certain things that don't have to be disposed of. They can be reused. And again, it comes back to this statement about the circular economy. It's about which of those assets could be reused, refurbished, reused, maybe even re-warranted potentially. Yeah, because again, there's a lot of resources there that still have life in them, but it can be components of an overall system. And it's identifying which are the components that can be reused.
So how do we start, as you said with Lenovo and with what you guys are doing, you've got a huge CSR project that works alongside all of this. How you're a big organization. How do smaller organizations get started in this? What would your advice be to them in this whole thought process, in this kind of reprogramming of the way we deal with electronic waste?
I mean, honestly, as an example, I would encourage every end user organization just to reach out to Enviroserve and get an understanding of what they can do for them. This doesn't have to be the large corporates. This can be the small to medium business that's looking at removing, 3 or 4 PCs, laptops that, they just don't know what to do with the data, don't know what to do with those devices. They'll happily assist with that. It may be there's no asset value, but at least they will then know that it's been safely disposed of and done where the data is securely erased.
Very interesting. Do you see hope? You gave us some great dates on the amount of equipment that is going to be generated and the where this is going in the next 10 years. Are you hopeful, Chris, with where things are going?
Absolutely. Look, change creates opportunity, James. And as I say, it really does boil down to local legislation and government standards. If you look at what the UAE government is doing and their focus on HPC and AI, on blockchain, they are so forward thinking. So they're already on the button. And I am sure that the standards will continue to evolve and strengthen to basically mandate. I mean, we know the way that things happen in this part of the world. You know, it's through mandating things in the correct manner. It's all about being environmental. It's about doing the right thing for the end user customer, managing data correctly, safely. So I very strongly believe that certainly in the UAE, we're in a very strong position to take advantage of the facilities that are here. And let's remember, those facilities at Enviroserve have been heavily endorsed and sponsored by the UAE government for good reason.
Chris, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us.
My pleasure, James. Thanks once again.
This plant has been built over an area of 120 square feet, and it's a combination of various modules, and we're able to extract commodities out of your domestic waste, which could be anything related to household, industrial, or batteries, or any air conditioning units. Anything can be dealt with by this plant to the capacity of 39,000 tons a year. Yeah. And just for information, we have been the winners of Best Electronic Waste Recycler for the last 2 years consecutively, and we look forward to winning the third one in a row.
So what am I looking at as I look out this way? What are we seeing?
So here you see various modules, the linkages with conveyor belts, there are the shredders, there are sifters, there are milling machines, there are air tables. It's a combination of machinery combined together by 150 plus motors, almost 300 meters of conveyors, interlinking each other, 6 modules. And also it's clean because the entire dust is also been collected with a network of pipes which is running all throughout the plant. So as you see on the farther end of the plant, you have the input section wherein all your domestic waste is fed in using specialized equipment. We've got grabbers and we've got pushers for that. That's where the machinery takes care of sorting out the harmfuls and feeding it to the pre-shredder. Subsequently, it's a 2-stage shredding, which thereafter liberates the material, and we come to the second part of the plant, which is all about segregation. Herein, the material mix which has been shredded is segregated into various commodities like plastic, aluminium, iron, copper. We have got also a mix of PCBs. In fact, we have got a machine which uses artificial intelligence and a combination of air, which is able to sense out from a mound of destructed material PCBs, and that's how you can have clean PCB fragments as an output. It's a very valuable output. As we stand here on top of this module, this is a module which is able to generate and churn out 8 different type of outputs. So it's a technological marvel built here only for the GCC region, but caters even for beyond.
It's very quiet right now. It must, with all the belts and all the motors and all of these devices working, it must be very loud.
It's loud, but we have also built in HSC features for this plant wherein it's loud but not harmful to the employee. I think among the notable are the enclosures which you see. They are all soundproof enclosures. All the heavy machinery is enclosed inside the soundproof enclosures. And the dust pipes network which you see on top is also serving a dual purpose. One is to extract all the dust out so that from an HSC perspective, none of the employees are exposed to harmful metallic dust. And from the other perspective, that it is able to generate and recover even the last bit of material, because the dust also contains particulate matter, which is a part of the recyclable output.
Very interesting. Yeah. What's your favorite part of this plant?
Well, we are standing on one of them, yeah. It's an octopus, very fondly named octopus, because it's got 8 outputs. Yeah. And 8 outputs also further are divided into various sizes. And that brings about the efficiency. The more the categories and the more efficient the process becomes.
Thank you very much.
The whole idea behind this concept is, to let the plant do its work. So here's a really good example of what I mean when I'm saying that the informal or the low-skilled recyclers, I mean, how much of this can you really process? I mean, you could start to pull things out with your hands or with some screwdrivers, but how long are you really going to spend on a printer? What they'll probably do is look for that circuit board right here which has some good value. So 4 screws later, you've got your circuit board. Now you're looking at a lot of plastic and iron, which this might only fetch you 70 fills.
Yes.
How much time are you going to spend for 70 fills? You're not. So you're probably either just going to shred it or you're going to throw it away. So you've killed the whole cow, and all you did was take the filet mignon.
Yeah.
And yes, that's a business model for some people.
Isn't that a great analogy? The filet mignon is not the way to operate when it comes to recycling, is it?
Well, there's so much more left to do.
Yeah, yeah.
So much more material. There's no reason that this should go into the landfill. So this can come here. So in that way, we sort of complement even our competitors.
Yes.
They'll take it so far, and we'll take it the remainder.
Right.
So let's talk about the plants a little bit here. So what you're looking at is the world's most sophisticated electronic waste recycling plant. Okay, this is all, let's say, German technology, Italian pumps, and Swiss integration. This is a really, really high-end plant. But what we're doing is, in the first stages here, all of these white cabins that you see is where we have human interaction. So in the first stage, there's nothing super special going on here. What we're just doing is detrashing it, so taking out any of the styrofoam or the packaging, the cardboard, and that'll get thrown down the chute. We're cutting cables so that they don't get caught up in the process. We're removing batteries, we're breaking glass.
I've understood, so that's actually a workroom.
Yes, which is why there's the air conditioner on top.
Ah, yeah.
So we're now in October. I would say it's around, what, maybe 28 to 30 degrees in here? Okay, it's not uncomfortable, but it's warm. Imagine what this is like in the summertime. It gets hot. But luckily, our guys and girls are in air-conditioned cabins.
Right.
Okay, so the only work that's going on here is usually with the forklifts and the grabbers. So the material goes up a conveyor belt. We're going to pre-process it here, remove some things that we don't want to go into the plant, and then goes down this chute into what we call the Stairway to Heaven. You can imagine what happens at the end of the Stairway to Heaven. They actually don't meet their maker, they meet the Terminator. And what the Terminator is a gigantic shredder.
Right.
You can imagine industrial-sized grizzly bear claws that are just ripping things open and tearing them apart so that we can now get access to what's inside,
Yes.
and stuff will start to fall off. So what we'll see when we're done with the Terminator is you'll still recognize things and stuff.
Yeah.
So you'll see a piece of a brass cup link. You'll see a section of a printer that is ripped into shreds. So you'll still recognize things. But that'll go into a new cabin where we can now access the battery, we can access the little oil canister, maybe a toner cartridge got missed, and we were able to pull it out at that stage. So it's another level of refining, you could say, for the product and preparation. But after that, total destruction. We're getting into the heavy stuff after that. Oh, here's another one. This is, I always love the networking equipment because you really get a good bird's eye view of what's inside of a computer, okay? So here you'll have some nice copper inductors and some transformers. Okay, here's the transformers here, okay? But you've also got little fuses, okay? You've got more capacitors, which we talked about earlier. So there's some nasty things that need to come out, and that'll come out in the process. After they meet the Terminator, a lot of these capacitors will start to fall off or at least be accessible. So we can now break them off and pull them out. That's why this plant is actually really critical for electronics like this. We can get access to the things that others would just throw away. But if you look at a hard drive, for instance, okay? Here's a computer hard drive. And on the inside, you've got a little palladium-coated platter, this little disc right here which stores your information. You've got a little bit of steel on the inside, okay? But on the back side, we've got, again, a motherboard with a little bit of gold coating and gold teeth and connectors, right? So here's a larger version for a desktop computer. These little actuators right here, which this little thing, it looks like a record player, right?
Yes, it does.
Well, there's a little magnet that goes here that flicks this back and forth, and that's how it writes the ones and the zeros.
Yes.
And all your data gets written, okay? That's the little grinding sound that you hear in your computer. It's the tick-tock of the magnet and the actuator interacting, okay? Well, the magnet, because we're working with a lot of metals, the magnet kind of messes things up for us. So we'll pop out the magnet early on, and now what's left over is a high-grade aluminum case, a really nice computer board, a little bit of steel, and a little bits of plastic, all of which are recyclable. So this is 100% recyclable. Same thing here. There's a little casing for it. Usually either stainless steel or aluminum. Either which way, nice little piece of metal right there. Beauty, hey?
Yeah, oh, amazing.
Just good copper content right there. You could say the most valuable thing, and that's for input to output. So by volume and by value,
Yes.
this is a copper facility.
Yeah.
This is a copper facility. There's so much of it, and it's so hard to get to. The guys with a chisel and a hammer are not going to spend the time to remove all this by hand. It's not valuable enough. But once you put it into our grinder, it'll liberate itself naturally. Oh, this thing's pretty cool. So, remember I was telling you before that toner cartridges are explosive. Okay, because the powder obviously has, in large quantities, has a potential to ignite. Now, if we were to throw the toner cartridges in with the rest of this process, there's a lot of banging and clanging and shredding and crushing and pounding. There's a potential for a spark anywhere along the way, which means that a high concentration of toner powder could cause an explosion. Okay? So we have the region's only toner cartridge processing module.
Oh, wow.
So what happens here is the toner cartridges get fed in one by one.
Right.
They'll go up this chute where they're sort of ground in a small mill over there. And you can see all the fire suppression systems along the way. Okay? Well, we're also mixing this with an inert chemical to suppress any sort of potential for a spark. It sucks the oxygen out of the air with this little powder. And by that way, we can then grind these toner cartridges down, because if we go to the other side, what I'll show you is that there's a small steel rod that's underneath this aluminum tube, which is in a plastic casing, which has a small gold connector pins. Okay, so there's actually really good stuff can be recovered from this if you can get it to it. But again, your typical recycler, informal recycler, is not going to spend any time trying to get 30 fills worth of value out of this, but we can crush thousands a day. So but the toner powder it's non-toxic. Just can kind of just go away, really. So I'll see if there's any kicking around over here. Yeah, okay, we're lucky. Let's see what we can grab. This, to be honest, looks like a bit of the remnants after they cleaned it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this guy here. Oops, that smashed the parts. Okay. So, what are we looking at here? So, all right, athlete. So, here's your typical toner cartridge.
Yeah.
Okay. We all recognize these if we, get adventurous enough to clean and change our toners out. So, what's inside here, though, is a few springs. You've got some small motors. You've got some plastic gears. But inside here, you've got a little aluminum tube, which is driven by a little steel rod, okay? And as we crush this and all the powder comes out, here's where you can see that little steel rod,
Yeah.
okay? With some little foam rollers, okay, here. So there's a nice piece of steel,
Yes.
okay, underneath. Great for recycling. This is going to continue on and end up at the end of our process as a tiny little fraction. We might see this screw, you know, in a few days when this goes through the plant. We'll see the little bits of plastic liberated from that screw, and all this will come apart nicely. And that roller that we talked about is actually aluminium.
Yes.
It's a really nice, clean piece of aluminium. And this will go directly back into the production cycle. We'll send this off to the smelter. They'll melt it down into what are called ingots, which are like little aluminium bricks, and they'll sell that off to the manufacturers, make new toner cartridges. So this is where they'll pick out the capacitors, motors, transformers, things that we can access by hand. Will come out here. Let's stand in the middle here. That's always a nice shot. It really showcases the complexity of the system. Okay, so I would say here, and keep the shot high so that we don't get the carpets. So after we've met the terminator and the material all gets shredded, it comes out into another cabin where a group of our helpers will be picking out things like transformers and motors and capacitors, things, right, that you would recognize, things that have broken off during the shredding process. We can pick out by hand because they're pretty much ready to be recycled in that form, okay? But from there, they'll have some clean material that will go either this way, up into one of the mills, where it'll start to get ground down, or it'll go back this way, and it'll pass across the ferrous magnet. So this is a series of magnets on a belt that are just picking out anything that's iron all along the way, because that'll go on to a separate process. But this is sort of the nexus. This is the hub of the plant where material starts to go in different directions.
Yes.
The plastics will start to go one way, the metals will start to go another. We've got optical sorting later on, we've got milling, we've got more shredding, we've got more magnets. So this is the end of module 2, and we go on to module 3, where now we start, the power of this plant is all from this section onwards.
And it's amazing that your dust collection is absolutely everywhere. When you actually tune into it, every stage of the process is dust collection. So no wonder this is, you know, your indoor air quality is still really good.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
And I mean, the fans aren't even on right now.
Yes.
Once you turn on the exhaust fans, you could drop the temperature in here 10 degrees in a hot day. Okay, so now that we've turned things, we've shredded them into stuff, the stuff now becomes commodities. It's unrecognizable once it goes into Thor's hammer. And this hammer mill is basically pulverizing all the material down into granules. It's like some of it can be anywhere from a fine powder to the little aluminum balls that we saw. They'll get sort of gummed up and balled up in the hammer mill. Okay? And that allows us to then create material of similar size. Once you have material of similar size, you know that iron is going to be much heavier than plastic. So now you can start to separate it by weight. You know that aluminium is going to be lighter than copper, so you can start to... So now you see how once you break the material down to a certain size, you can start to work it. You can start to work with it and separate it. Okay? So I'll see if I can find some material. No, the guys are actually cleaning the lines right now. So all the bits are coming out. Let's see if I can find some shred. Ah, yeah, here's some. Let's see what we can find here. Let's get rid of the... Okay, so here's a typical output from the mill. Okay, look, we're in luck. We found a thing. Okay, we've got a brass thing. That's great. That'll just get separated out very nicely, maybe even picked out along the way. We've got a little piece of aluminium. Okay, that looked like some sort of a tie. Maybe one of those IKEA wrenches. Okay, remember that wiring harness we saw earlier?
Yes.
Okay, there's a piece of it, it's come out. There's some of the copper that's all twisty. That, to me, looks like that might have been part of a transformer, part of an inductor, something, you know, that they were using the copper for. But if we really get down into it, you can see some plastics, there's some glass in there. Okay, there'll be some tin, but oh, there's a piece of a motherboard. Okay, and there's another little piece of a motherboard. So we're really getting down to work now. Oh, here's a piece of gold. That little pin, right there. There's a gold pin. You see it? So here's a great example. We'll put the copper there too. There's a great example of everything that we're searching for in this process. So like I said about grinding a pepper mill, there's your pepper powder and here's your pepper granules. And this will go on further for separation into the octopus, okay? And the larger material will head on into this section where we've got an optical sorter. And the optical sorter is only looking for motherboards. Only. Only motherboards. Once we, Mom would be so proud. Once we crush everything down, right? Remember I said one of the valuable things in this whole electronics thing is the motherboard. That's where the precious metals are. Well, they're usually always either green or tan color or blue. So this optical sorter can recognize those and separate it from plastic, for instance. Let's see if we can find, there's more of the plastic, as we talked about. I'll try and find us some plastic chips along with some PC board chips. We'll come back to here to finish, I think. Yeah. Just in case. Just in case. It's a bit dusty, but we get the point here. Okay. So, as the material gets ground up, and it goes through the process, okay, you'll see little bits of plastic mixed in with the motherboards. Now, if this is passed over the magnet, we know that there's no iron in here. Okay, so this is all either non-ferrous, plastic, or PC boards. Now, we don't know the difference between this and cardboard by weight.
Yes.
Okay, but our optical sorter recognizes that these are PC boards.
By color.
By color. So there's a really cool process. It'll recognize it optically, and then there's a series of small air jets. And as it comes down the conveyor belt, it
Blows it.
times it
No.
perfectly that gets flicked away into a separate bin. And you end up with cleaned plastic
That is amazing.
and a bin full of motherboard chips.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Let's see if we can find any here. So that's that guy, and then it goes up here. And this is another air-conditioned cabin where, oh, they don't, yeah, everything's empty. Okay, stay here for a sec. I'm just going to grab it from here. Let's see. Yeah, this is cool. You have decent lighting? Can you see what's going on?
Oh, You're hoping that all of this turns out well, right? Because you know that I'm not a video guy.
Okay, so after these two materials, which are by weight and by size very similar,
Yes.
after they go through the optical sorter will have flicked all of these little PC board chips into one of these bins, and all of the plastics will go out into another bin. So you can still recognize that this probably come from a printer or some keyboards. You know,
But they're still remarkably large chips.
Yeah, they're big.
So I'm guessing it's multi-processors here. So you would feed this back into another machine to break this down further, would you?
No, this will go now directly to the refinery because look what we've done. We've broken the plastic off that pin. This might have been from RAM sticks.
Got you.
But we've broken it off, we've exposed it. The refiner, this is like caviar for the refinery. They love this stuff. Now, by volume, we're talking like 0.01%
Yes.
of our material ends up like this, and 30% ends up like that. So, you know, definitely this is the high value but low volume stuff. And this is the low value, high volume stuff that we have to treat. But electronics manufacturers want this. It's the same material that they just used. Whoever, you know, if this was part of a printer, they're just going to make another printer out of this. So they want this plastic, and we can ship this off to reputable downstream recyclers who will prepare this material to go back into the production cycle.
And what kind of percentages can you can they merge in their process?
What sort of percentages can they merge into the
So
process?
as in
What do you mean?
for plastics, for instance, what percentage could you
Oh.
a manufacturer reasonably use?
Geez, well, I would say hypothetically 100% recycled, hypothetically.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about, let's say, Lenovo laptops, like high performance machines, they want to be 100% certain exactly what type of plastic that is.
Sure.
And you know, if there's any imperfections in that plastic, because the last thing you want is your computer overheating and it starts to melt the casing because you,
warranty.
so they're very careful about how they're mixing it in. But facilities like this play a critical part of the production cycle in the circular economy because we have a consistent, quality, predictable output.
Yes.
So when they're working with us, they want to find facilities like ours to say, I know that your machinery is going to separate it to the level that I can even use. Because that bag of stuff that guy dropped off at our plant, we don't even know what that is and where it came from. So, you know, this is a very, very valuable part of the production cycle. They know that our non-ferrous bags of fractions are not going to contain any iron. Iron would be an imperfection for that process. So they're happy with our process. They'll come down, they'll audit us.
I'm sure.
And just take a scoop from a bag and say, okay, put that on under the microscope and let's see if there's any iron. Put a magnet over top of it, see how it's going. And it's really, really clean. And I'll show you how we polish that material in module 4.1. I'll show you what we call the output fractions first, which is the end result. And then we'll head on over to the beginning and then we'll walk through the whole process so that start with the end in mind. So this is the remnants of a shipment that we sent out yesterday. We had basically a full container of material, laptops, desktops, networking equipment, and monitors. And they've already picked up 2 truckloads, and the 3rd truck is coming today to take the remainder. You always need to check these, just in case. Just in case. Yeah. No luck today. Okay, so here at the Recycling Hub, this entire plant is working on a granulation concept. So it's a dry process. What we're doing is we're mechanically separating all of the materials. So what we want at the end is aluminum, iron, we want plastic, we want precious metals, copper. You know, the copper is one of the most valuable things that comes out of here. So what we'll do is we'll shred, we'll crush, we'll pound, we'll mill, we'll sift and sort and separate and eventually end up with what we call our output fractions. And that's this.
Surely that's how the heat supply works.
No.
What?
This is aluminium, and aluminium, as you know, is a little bit malleable.
Yeah.
So as
that's
this
enough
goes
to do
through,
it.
as this goes through the mill, it naturally balls up into little gummy balls.
Oh, that's amazing.
So this could have been anything from like a structure or a frame for some conference material
But
to
even
server
at,
bits.
Even at that level, it is ready to go back into the manufacturing process. There's nothing more required, is there?
Nothing else. This is clean aluminium.
Phenomenal.
Okay. This is all ferrous or iron,
Yeah.
right? And so this all gets pulled out by a magnet,
Yep.
which is quite cool. So that's very easy to separate. This will go directly to the smelter.
Don't want to lose any. Again, the granulation size is amazing. You can actually see what these components were.
That's the best part about the ferrous, and particularly at this size. Yeah, you can imagine that this used to be something.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely
So,
amazing.
somebody somewhere along the way might have unscrewed this.
Yes. Yeah.
Somebody fixed whatever this thing was at some point. Now, okay, the prettier sister for the ferrous is the non-ferrous. And this is really what we're after.
Right.
So this is all non-magnetic.
Yeah.
And what you'll find in here is a lot of copper, which is the orange. That's easy to see. You'll see the brass, which is all the gold-looking stuff.
Got it.
Okay, you'll get some tin. You'll get a little bit of aluminium might find its way in here, but this is also, if you're looking at a smaller level here, where we're going to start to find the precious metals. So bits of gold. Okay. So all these little connectors and pins that you'll see are usually gold coated because gold's a really, really good conductor. So we're getting a nice precious metals concentration. Up to 60% of this is already copper and highly recyclable. So we'll send this off to the refinery where they'll melt off the copper.
So this level is where you would then go to the refinery to basically take it to the next step.
This goes to refinery because they'll melt it off at
Yes.
different temperatures to recover the different metals.
Yeah.
And it's worth it for this type of stuff. Now, iron, you know, or steel on the other hand, it's much less valuable.
Yes.
So they'll take it in the larger forms. They're not so excited about small bits like this. They like nice big chunks, you know, like this steel girders and stuff. That's the normal scrap market.
Yeah.
But that's fine. But this is just a byproduct of what we're doing. So, I mean, it's actually, iron is one of our most sold commodities.
Wow.
So much iron in everything. Just goes straight out the door. But very, very few companies in the world
Yeah.
are able to do this.
Yes, but this is the magic thing about what you're doing here, which is you're doing almost the difficult work, and then as soon as it isn't the specialism that is required to process further,
Yeah.
out it goes to
Out
the
it goes.
general market to either finish off in this case, or alternatively throw it to a much more bulky process.
Sure. Well, look at it. Look at a circuit board, right? This is a low grade, you know, sort of electrical board, some very basic thing, maybe a satellite receiver or something like that. Okay. It's got some good precious metals content on here, but what are you going to do? You're going to spend the time to try to break this one piece off one at a time, and even if you did, the rest, what are you going to do with it? They're just going to throw it away.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can recover all the remaining material from this.
Right.
This plastic,
That's plastic.
yep,
Huh.
it's like a sand.
Yeah, it is. Almost feels like a garnet.
But this is,
So that is you can recycle straight off this. So you literally what? Melt at this point and throw it into the process?
so this can be melted down. It's quite difficult to find specialized recyclers for this because if you can imagine, this is almost like cracked pepper sprinkled on top of a soup. I mean, this is not particularly useful. Even the slightly larger size is not so useful because what you might have in here is 6 different types of plastic.
Got you. Yes.
And if you're making a new television casing, you need a very specific type of plastic.
Yeah.
So it gets quite difficult to work with this, but the downstream recyclers for this type of material will float it, which means they're going to put it down like a trench, like, you know, the old panning for gold days, right? It's the same concept.
Oh, I get you. Yes, so different weights or whatever to get it down to individual components.
Yeah, it's like a density separation. So they'll take a saline-based water, like a salty solution, and the saltier it gets, the more buoyant it becomes. So they'll separate out the various plastics.
Wow. And you must produce huge amounts of that.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Plastic is also one, by volume, one of our biggest. So this guy here is where these fractions are coming from, and this is called the octopus.
Huh.
And what this is doing is separating plastics from metals. Okay? So all those bins will be full of plastics of different sizes. This is really a simple thing. It's really just sifting, okay? But it's putting all the plastics on one side, all the metals on the other. This is our 4 to 8 mil metals. Okay, so you'll start to see a lot more ferrous in there. You'll see big chunks of aluminium. Okay, this will be slightly smaller, but then when we get to this one, the 1 to 2 mil and the 0 to 1, this is really the power of this plant. And if I can grab a little handful here, okay, this is what a plant of this sophistication can do. Is we can grind things down to that level to recover that little piece of gold right there. And all this little bit of copper right there.
Amazing.
That's what we're looking for.
That's amazing.
And in that way, we can recover 96% of what goes in the front end of this plant.
Wow. What a phenomenal process.
No plastic, just metal.
That really is something, isn't it?
It's really fun to look at these under a microscope.
I'm sure it is.
You can see they look like gold bricks or like twisted pieces of steel, and they're tiny specks.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, that's gold. That little
Yeah.
fleck.
Wow.
And even smaller.
Refiner.
Even smaller down there. And what's smaller than that? The dust.
Ah.
Because this is a manual crushing mechanical separation process, we even capture the dust along all of these silver pipes. So we're constantly vacuuming the air. One, for health and safety reasons, but two, that's gold dust. It's silver dust, it's aluminium dust. And that all goes back into the dust buster, which is probably the UAE's largest vacuum cleaner.
That's amazing. So in terms of the outputs there, we have the 2 bags on this side.
Yep. So we've got 2 systems. We've got stage 1 and stage 2.
Ah.
Stage 1 is really collecting a lot of sand, dirt, dust, plastic chips, you know, things that come off during the shredding process. But filter 2 is hooked up to our mill, which is grinding things down and all throughout the fine refining process. And so this is where the precious metals dust will come from.
Right. There's the money.
And that gets sent off to the refinery. They'll assay it, which means they'll do an analysis of what's in there, parts per million of gold, silver, platinum, palladium, copper, and then they'll go after the material that's in there.
And where are your refineries? Is that facility local or is it something that's...
All international at the moment,
Right,
yeah.
okay.
So you'll have refineries in the United States, you'll have them up in Germany and Switzerland and Japan, of course, Toyota and Honda and all these manufacturers. Okay, a lot of electronics coming out of Japan.
Yeah.
So they have refineries to take the material and then keep it in country to continue their manufacturing. So Mitsubishi, you know, these are big refinery type companies. Okay, let's go check out, here, let's go this way. We'll go to the beginning now.
But not this big. Rugs.
Oh, here's, oh, that's interesting. So these are some of the plates that go into the mill. Okay. So when we say we're crushing things, we're using these to crush them. So go ahead and hold on to that one for me.
Oh, jeez, you're built better than I am. My God, that's insane. How many kilos do you reckon that is?
20.
Put that down before it kills me. Right, so explain to me about what that actually is.
So these are part of what we call Thor's hammer, okay? And these are like high-grade steel, like titanium steel bits that are like effectively like a coffee grinder. Okay, they're milling like a pepper grinder. They're milling things down so that we can basically just crush everything that goes in there to a level that the materials get liberated from each other. So whereas you might have a piece of wire that's covered in plastic, but the copper is underneath, when you grind it down, the copper and plastic fall apart. So you can imagine that at a large level. Now imagine it at a circuit board level. Tiny. We need to get every last piece of plastic liberated from the copper wire, every last piece of steel broken off from the aluminum pin. And by that way, we continue to just work the material down. Yeah. So these are like the teeth.
Wow.
It's crazy, huh?
It is crazy. Amazing.
Don't film the carpets if you can avoid it. This is, came to us from a client that's just redoing their building and stuff.
Oh, okay.
So this is an integrated facility. So we'll take refrigerant, which is your favorite here.
Yes, absolutely.
We'll take all the e-waste we can refurbish, but then we do what's called specialized waste, which could be anything from shoes to shampoo and carpets and all that. Oh, maybe we'll come back to this guy. That's it. Washing machines are a good example. So here's some recent output actually from the plant. And I'll take a handful of this because where we polish it up is, or here, you take this one because this is the 4 to 8.
So in terms of polishing, what you're actually talking about is improving the accuracy of it being what you're saying it is. Is that right? As a final output?
Exactly. Because what'll end up is you'll have some aluminium mixed in there with your some plastic mixed in with your aluminium, because at a certain size they're almost indistinguishable.
So am I right in thinking here that they've got brass, aluminium, and copper?
Yes.
That's the mix.
Effectively.
But it's very distinct which one is which. So you've done your job extremely well.
So, yeah, and these are the 3 different sizes.
Yeah.
So let's head on over there, and we'll talk about how we do these things. So this one here in particular, if you don't touch it though, it might be static charged. But this is basically it's like an eddy current, electrostatic kind of thing, right? So there's 2 chutes, okay, and you can imagine. Remember, you used to go to the birthday parties and rub the balloon on your head,
yes,
and you get that static charge.
Yeah.
Well, that will actually push the plastic a little further than it pushes the metal.
Got it.
So the metal will fall straight down and the plastic will go just a little further. And so we're getting nice plastic output here. And then this is what's not yet finished.
Yes.
So you'll see this is where the copper wires are typically found,
yeah,
little bits of aluminium.
Yep.
So we'll continue to work this material until you've got clean plastic and clean copper and aluminium output.
That's amazing.
Okay. Kind of more of the same. And then this one here. So this is another one of our, you could say like the polishing type machines. Yeah, perfect. So this is where we're getting nice clean aluminium output. So the plastic and the alu, okay? A little bits of copper. This is where by size and by weight, it's a little bit difficult for us to separate these at that point. So, but I mean, you can see like how little it is.
Yes.
But this is actually where we use our new hires and our training procedures to show the guys and get them hands-on with the material to understand. By weight, that copper feels the same as the brass, feels the same as the aluminum ball. But what we're doing in this section, if you can show me your hand, we're now separating by size.
Yes.
And in your hand, we're going to find primarily brass. You can see it, the gold-colored stuff. You're going to see some tin in there. This is a little piece of tin right there. Okay, that one there.
Ah, yeah.
Okay, it's a little tin. That might have been holding a USB stick.
Yes.
Okay, you've got nice copper. The copper is excellent. There's the brass.
Yep.
Okay, because by size, that's the kind of things we're expecting to see of that size. Now, if we go a little smaller, okay, you might start to find a little bit more potential for gold-plated things. Okay, so there might be like a little stick in there somewhere, or like this could be like a little piece of gold plating. Okay, but not quite. It's basically still the non-ferrous materials at this point. But go one size smaller, and now you really see the profile changes. This is where you actually will even see visual gold. Okay, there'll be bits of silver in here. Okay, platinum, palladium you might find. Less copper at this stage, but there's a gold pin right there. Let's see if we can isolate it. Okay, so there's a gold pin. Now by size, that won't end up in here.
Yes.
But by size, that'll end up in here. So this is actually a very valuable mixture with high precious metals potential compared to these. So this will go off to a smelter who's looking for the copper, the tin, the lead, all that kind of stuff. And this will go to a refinery who's going to target the precious metals. Not so concerned about aluminium. In fact, it's kind of a wastage for them, the aluminium, versus these guys who want it. So that's how we work with the downstream guys.
Okay, so leave mine there as well.
Yeah, just put it on there. Keep them all in there. All right. Okay, so what we're doing here is working with our new staff, helping them to understand the way the different processes work. They're separating by hand some of the material, but this is really a training exercise for them so they can get hands-on, they can feel the weight, they can feel the composition, the density of the material to understand better how the machines are working. They're doing it by hand. Okay. And in the final stage, when we're done, this is it. Yay. So here's bags of fractions ready to go. The big bags are the filter dust. Wow. They're getting ready to be shipped out. And this will all head off to the refineries. Here's the dust. Okay. Anything that you can see that even sparkles is gold. Wow. Any glint that you can see is gold. So
some real value.
You'd think so, but by pound, you're looking at parts per million at this stage, right? So to me, this looks more like stage 1 filter dust. Okay, because you're getting a lot of like stuff that came off early on, and this is going to be a lot of like sand. There's a lot of dirt, things like that. So this is actually, we're just kind of cleaning this, to be honest. This is like vacuum cleaner dust. Yeah. But inside here is where you'll get the more recoverable materials. The highest form of sustainability is reuse.
Absolutely.
So there's no sense shredding great computers and printers and laptops, so we can bring them in here, fix whatever needs fixing, and give them a second life.
And how do you then get those back into the system? So how do you retail them back out? How does that work?
So we'll typically work through agents that will buy a container, a shipping container full of computers, maybe 3,000 pieces. Okay, and that'll go into secondary markets like Pakistan. Yep. We have Enviroserve Rwanda, Enviroserve Kenya. So we can send an entire container down there, and they will work directly with NGOs, schools, small businesses to get them high quality computers at a cheap price.
The value of that is just massive.
Huh.
It really is.
I mean, a funny thing about secondary markets is even the kids in Africa now don't even want the iPhone 5. That's how fast things are accelerating.
Amazing.
So yeah, they want all the latest, the i5s.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a second generation. They want now the fourth and fifth generation iPads. But the most important part of anything that's containing data is the erasure process. So any data carrying devices, this is your mobile phones, laptops, desktops.
Yes.
But even printers can carry data from the last photocopies that you've made, the last thing that you've sent to print. So wiping the data is a huge part of it, which is why you're in a secure room, within a secure division, within a secure building, within a secure property.
Yeah.
Okay, the cost of a data breach can be hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I can imagine. It's very manual as well, that process. Physically setting all of this up, whilst once you've hit go, you're pretty much in the place. It's a unit by unit scenario, isn't it?
So well, coincidentally, you can. In fact, was just speaking with somebody yesterday who's developed a process for remote wiping that we're going to start to promote. But basically, this is a typical hard drive that you would get out of your desktop computer. Okay, that will attach to this one, which is called a workstation. But this can handle up to 12 different hard drives. So we just have to connect them, okay? And then like this one here, which is doing a smaller version of a laptop drive, okay? It'll wipe that data.
Got it.
All the ones and zeros get reset back to zeros.
So in effect, what we're actually looking at here is actually a test bank. These are not units that are being wiped because you're only working with the hard drive. But if these will do 12 at a time, then here you actually have a test bank.
That's right.
Which is totally different to what I just thought.
That's right. So yeah, I mean, we can set it all up, wipe them. Maybe it takes about 3 hours to wipe a disk,
Okay.
but we can do 48, 124 all at a time.
That's great. Wow. Awesome.
This area here, which this is the one that I really love.
Yes.
Okay, this is what we call our audit and test station. Okay, so this small form factor, this is an Dell Optiplex 7010, which I know because our software has automatically told us what this is.
Yes.
It's told us all the specs, tells us the generation, the processor, the RAM, and as we go to, let's say, remarket this one, we know exactly what's working and what's not.
Got it.
All the USB sticks will be checked, the optical drive, and then if we need to,
process or?
within seconds it tells us. So what we used to do is the technicians, one by one, would go in and check this, or they could log in to the, sort of hack into the computer and check its manual records, type it into an Excel sheet, and that's how you would track it. But now it's an inventory system.
But this is giving you the ability to get it back into the environment at a much cheaper price point.
A single technician previously could audit around 35 to 40 desktops per day.
Yeah.
They can now do around 200 per day
Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
with 100% accuracy.
Yeah.
So now that we know what's wrong with it, we can either fix it, or if it's been guaranteed as working, it's ready to go back out to an NGO in Africa.
Phenomenal.
This is Taha. Taha's our ITAD manager.
Fascinating department you have here. Really great. Wow.
Taha's particularly good. He's sort of classically trained. So he's big on repairs. So fixing a broken screen, no issue.
Yes.
Easy repair, right? Just heat it up, remove the glass, put a new one on, okay? But if this iPhone in particular, let's say, is not charging, then we might have a problem on the board. So we would then take it down to a board level here, under the microscope, identify and isolate the piece that charges. So perhaps it would be, I don't know, let's say, let's say this is the little thing that's responsible for charging it, and that's short-circuited. We heat it up, remove it, replace it, and you've got a 2,000 dirham iPhone back on the market.
That's great.
Super cool.
It's super cool.
I mean, we think about all this stuff for cars, it's completely transferable to electronics. I mean, these things are just a combination of technologies that break down, fix the one thing that's broken, and it's good to go again.
Yep.
Sustainability.
Yes. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And he's got a stack to work through. He's going to be a busy man today.
You're right. Okay, so let's get into the industrial side of things here. This is our incoming queue. This is the outgoing. So all of these monitors, for instance, have been audited and tested. We know that they're all in working condition. Yep. So let's see, let's grab one here. Okay, so we know this one's in good condition.
Yep.
It'll have a few scuffs on it,
Yes.
but actually, that's just a top coat. You can easily replace that little piece of plastic on the top because it's what's behind it that has all the technology in there. So these are great monitors, and they'll get a really good life down in Pakistan or Afghanistan, even into Africa.
Great.
We just shipped 1,400 monitors in a single shot, along with 800 desktops and 500 laptops.
Where's the biggest market for you? Is it Pakistan, Afghanistan, or?
Pakistan's good because of proximity.
Yeah.
Okay, India has a electronic waste and let's say used electronics ban, so it has to be used within country.
Right.
So we can't sell into India.
Yeah.
But Africa's great. Africa's really, really good. It's a market that received a lot of aid work in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
All that old material is now expired, so it needs to be cleaned up, which is what we do. But we can also put material from the last 10 years can go into there. Really good stuff. Apple's one of our clients. James was just telling a story about in Apple Canada, they caught one of the recyclers basically selling the product, which is, that's exactly why companies work with a group like us, is that they know that here it is inside a secure cage within a secure building, within a secure property. But, all of these devices have unique IDs. So that MacBook Pro needs to be destroyed because if it's given away, somebody registers it with their Apple ID, it sends the, when it says initializing
Yes.
or setting up, this will just take a few minutes,
Yeah.
it's querying the database.
Yes.
And then it goes, wait a second, this one was decommissioned a year ago, why is it coming back online? And Apple gets a little notification to check in on their recycler to make sure that they're complying.
Yeah, I bet.
So yeah, this is quite
So
cool.
when you say that these are being decommissioned, does that mean now that will you be able to pull the components out of it for use, or alternatively, is this something that's going to end up ground up?
This will be recycled. So they're working with us specifically because of this facility right here.
Got you.
But what we're doing here is just basically storing it short term.
Okay.
And then when it's ready to be processed, we'll break it all, we'll remove the batteries, we'll take out the screen, and then we'll feed it into the plant where we can then grind it up into its raw materials of aluminium and copper. We can take out the motherboard in there, which has some gold, some precious metals content. Hey, James, one sidebar is as you're filming, maybe if you want to film here, because the boxes are actually one of our clients as well, and we kind of cheated by using their boxes for practical usage.
And network switches.
Oh, you know what they are. Good. We get switches galore.
Yeah, I bet you do. Yeah, yeah.
Here's a good bird's eye view into what goes on inside of a computer, right?
Yeah.
So it's your typical MacBook. Love these, okay? So on the back side, what you're looking at is a battery pack,
Yep.
which very flammable. If this becomes punctured, this can start a flame.
Yep.
Okay, you have your optical drive in here. This is where your motherboard is with all your RAM. Here's all of your component inputs. Okay. So we really like taking these things apart because built into here is a lot of gold, silver, platinum, palladium. There's a lot of precious metals, and we can actually remove this board in our process and send that off for refining.
Wow.
They basically melt off all of the precious metals and recover them, okay? The battery contains cobalt, which is going to be the new gold.
Yes.
cobalt in short supply and high demand. So Apple themselves are very much looking into cobalt, and all the other rechargeable device companies are desperate to find solutions for cobalt. Okay, but what we know Apple for, very high quality build, good quality aluminium here, so definitely this can all be recycled and put back into new products, and Apple's actually using a certain percentage. I think they're around 30% now in the new MacBook Pros of recycled content. But if you want to look at a bigger level, here's a server blade. Okay, there's all your RAM slots. This is where your CPUs would go. You've got nice copper on here from your little transformers and inductors all the way along. Okay, but this motherboard itself, if you were to break it open, all these components, the integrated circuits and stuff, are all connected along little tracks. And those tracks are typically copper, because copper is a very good conductor, as we know. That's why there's copper in all electrical devices, okay? Sockets and plugs and cables. But so there's a copper superhighway, an integrated network of copper that's sort of built in a sandwich construction inside this circuit board. But all of these connector pins here for your RAM and all of these pins here for your CPU are coated with gold, because gold is actually the best conductor for the signals. The ones and zeros and the starts and stops that we know computers operate on are all gold. And in fact, these guys here, you can see it with a little gold corner.
Yes.
Okay. So this is a little integrated circuit chip here. If you were to peel this off, like, you know, take it like a grape and just peel it off, you would see like a little cobweb of gold threads in there, because it's passing the information back and forth along all these tracks, like a central hub here. So these little things are the most valuable bits on here. Okay, they got little gold threads all the way through.
And it's amazing that with your process, this can be economic to recycle. It's quite something.
At scale. Yeah, at scale.
Yeah.
You know, these things are traded almost like a currency.
Wow.
Because anybody who's got a hammer and a chisel, right, can start an e-waste recycling facility. All they have to do is start to remove things like this. But this electrical board is a great example of what can go wrong, because yes, you've got some transformers in here.
Yep.
Okay, you've got your inductors, and there's good copper content in here. You've got what's called a heat sink, which we recognize from our air conditioning units.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, it does the same job. It's dissipating heat. These guys, what are they?
I don't know, actually.
Okay, these are capacitors.
Oh, same capacitors
Yeah.
that we used to with the
Okay.
PC. Okay.
So these are capacitors, and what they do is they store energy so that you can get quick shots of energy when you need it. We remember this from our old cameras. They used to go, they would charge up. That's the capacitor filling up with electricity, and then it flashes. So that's your burst of energy.
Yes.
Well, they have an acidic solution in them that in large quantities like this can become toxic. So if you were to throw away, let's say an informal recycler would say, I'm going to take the copper content, I'm going to take the aluminium content, we're going to break off anything that might have silver or gold on it, and the rest is worthless, we're going to throw it away.
Exactly.
Now you might have 5,000 of these concentrated in the landfill and leaching now into the groundwater. So it's a really, really bad idea for these things to go into the landfill. Boy, we could go for hours, hey?
Fascinating.
This
It
is
is absolutely fascinating.
It's like toys for boys around here. I mean, like these little guys. These are called tantalum. Okay, and tantalum is a very rare element as well. So we like that. We've got all of our CPU and processing chips here. Okay, so there's gold inside of all of these. There's gold in here and here. All throughout here, there's gold, there's gold, there's gold.
Gee.
So, you know, this little guy, here's gold plating right along here.
Would you be pulling, so would you be like board by board pulling all of this off? Or is this whole process automated all the way down? Because I thought you mentioned that you pull first and then you pull through your method.
So this guy's a good example here. And we'll see if we can open it up quickly. Okay, so here's the server blade. Okay, so what we would do, We wouldn't put this into the plant as it is.
Yeah.
Reason being, you've got a couple of basically battery packs right here. Okay? So this has one of these built in. Okay, a small one, which you can see just through here, regulating the power flow. Okay, so this shouldn't go in there, but you do have a good board here with some gold fingers, right, that are controlling how it works. The computer's telling when it needs power and how to switch off and on the fans and things like that. But when you look in here, you have all sorts. These are all fans, you know, as we go. And you know, it's quite a complicated little system, but there's the motherboard that we talked about before. Okay? Here's a little bit of RAM. And the RAM is a little micro, you know, a little micro system going on here. So there's a lot of really good material on all these things, but this will go to a refinery. And a refinery will use all sorts of special techniques to remove the precious metals. Once we remove, you know, let's say the things like this that will go to refinery, then we'll throw the carcass into the plant and remove all the last little bits. And we'll show you what that looks like next.
Great. So this is probably what?
2 GBs of RAM. So this is good. We can harvest this and put that into another desktop.
So probably what, 15 years old this, do you think?
Let's see. They usually have a generation number listed on them. And we can have a look at that. Okay, so Intel Xeon. So that's quite good.
Yeah.
Generation 7. So right now, oh boy, I think they're up to around generation 11 is coming out. So Gen 7's good. Gen 7's good. This will have some remarketing potential. So we'll fix this one up. We'll wipe any data on any of the drives and get this one back out onto the market.
Really?
Yeah. This could run easily. This could run a business. Because you've got your storage here.
Yeah.
You know, 126 GBs in each one of these little caddies. I don't know how to open these up, but some special trick. There we go. So there's your hard drive.